And I remember it being a little iffy because it wasn't working immediately. But then he sent that picture of the guy with the rose head, and we both were like, that's it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's it.
Thank you both for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Of course. I'm Adam and Nathan. I've had you on this podcast before to talk about the last album.
Yes.
Put out. Yes. So I'm excited to catch up and hear Becky's, journey in music, and then we'll talk about how both of you met and this album.
Okay, great.
Amazing. All right. Well, we'll start with you, Becky. We kind of heard Nathan's backstory in the last interview, so we'll start with you. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Texas. I was raised all over the place. I am a military brat. My father was in the Air Force, so I moved around a lot. But the bulk of my adult life up until about 3 years ago, I was in Ohio. And then in late 2019, I moved here to Maryland, and now I live just two or three houses away from
2
Nathan.
houses. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
What part of Ohio did you live in?
Columbus. So
okay.
in the center. Yeah.
Very cool. My family's from Cleveland area.
Yeah.
So but I never lived there. I lived in San Diego. Now I live in Nashville, but
Okay.
I know Ohio pretty well.
Cleveland tends to get the better shows because it's a stop between like New York and Chicago.
Yeah.
So that's where most of the good shows go.
Oh, sure. Well, Columbus is like basically Ohio State, right? I mean,
yes.
From what I heard, I had an aunt and uncle that lived there, and it's like if even during the off season, if like the quarterback is like spotted at Burger King, they'll like write an article about it. It's like all about.
Yes. No, it's wild. Yeah, which actually has taken me some getting used to moving out here to Maryland because they don't do college football here.
Yeah.
Because we live like between where we live is almost smack between like the Philadelphia Eagles and the Baltimore Ravens. And so people here, like, they're very invested in pro sports. And I'm like, y'all don't watch college ball here? They don't.
We do not. There's no college really around here with the team.
No.
That's funny. Nathan, I remember you saying you grew up in Maryland for a bit and then moved down to Florida and then back to Maryland, from what I remember.
Yeah. Well, I was born in Delaware, but I honestly, where I lived in Delaware and where I lived in Maryland are like on either side of the border. So it's Elkton, Maryland and Newark, Delaware, pretty much the same thing.
Okay.
But then, yeah, when I was 11, we moved down to Pensacola, Florida, down on the panhandle, the panhandle, which is basically lower Alabama. And anytime I meet someone from Florida, they're like, oh, you're not from Florida, you're from lower Alabama.
Sure.
But
Floribama. I went down there
then-
recently with my wife. We'd never been before. Orange Beach. It was interesting.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, it's an interesting area depending on where you're at. Interesting, terrifying, whatever. But especially down there because it's right on the Bible Belt, so that's super fun.
Oh yeah.
But then I moved back when I was 19 and pretty much lived in this area ever since.
Wow. I know where you said originally where you were at, you could like step in 3 states or something at the same time.
Yeah.
Is that same place, same area?
Yeah. We're in Elkton, Maryland now. Newark, Delaware is right over the border. And then
Pennsylvania.
Landenberg, Pennsylvania is right over.
Wild. Yeah, you're right in between everything. That's kind of cool though, right?
Yeah, there's literally a marker where you go hiking. Sometimes there's a marker where you can stand in all 3 states.
Whoa, it's like what's the one where you can stand in 4? It's just like the little brother or something, or a smaller sibling to that.
Yes, exactly.
Very, very cool. So, well, real quick, Becky, how did you then get into music? Like musical household? Do you come from a musical family?
I wouldn't say a musical household, no, but music has been a part of my life since I was a very little girl. Like I tell the story all the time that my first the first solo I ever had, that the thing that like made me catch the bug was in 3rd grade, like in a little play in school. And so since then, it's always been something that's been very present as like a pipe dream or a healing tool. Like that's just something that stayed with me through most of my life. But I come from like the theater nerd background in high school. And it wasn't until 21 or 22 that I started doing things that involved like live music, like in a band sense. So in my local scene in Columbus back then. So yeah, it's been a long journey here. It was something that was removed from my life for a very long time. So getting back into it in this capacity has been pretty rad for me. Yeah.
That's awesome. And the bands that you were in Columbus, were you the vocalist, or like what role did you play in the
Backing
band?
vocalist, yeah. Like I always joke that I was like our scene's Fergie. Like I would show up and do like a few lines and a few songs here and there. But in that time, there were no other women or female presenting people in that kind of rock scene. So it definitely was something that I loved, just kind of being able to provide a little bit to this band, a little bit to this band, a little bit to this band. So yeah.
Wow, very, very cool. You said you're removed from it for a while though, before
Yeah.
then joining up with Nathan and being a part of this project?
Yeah, yeah. I was married for a little over 11, I think it was close to 12 years. And in that time, that was not like being in bands was not something that was, how do I say that delicately?
However you need to say it.
Encouraged? I don't know.
Yes, fostered, encouraged, allowed, I guess is the better
Ugh.
term.
Tell it how you need to.
So yeah, it was something that disappeared very suddenly from my life. And so I met Nathan, you know, the same way most people meet Nathan back in not like that, but back in the day, you know, I've known Nathan for a decade now. And when Nathan was doing their solo work, I just kind of got dragged into that. So I've been providing backing vocals on all of Nathan's solo albums, but this album with the Iron Roses is the first time that I'm like
Up front.
yeah,
Yeah.
all in your spotlight.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, Nathan, I do remember you saying, I think Echoes was maybe the first song that you had written for like a solo
Mhm.
kind of aside from bands. It was, you wrote that song and dealt with a pretty heavy subject matter, and then going into, I believe, was it the first Nathan Gray and the Iron Roses album? After that,
after that, Feral Hymns was working title.
oh yeah,
which-
working title. That's
yeah.
what it was.
But to be honest, that really was the first Iron Roses like step towards doing what we are doing now. You know, it was like, I don't know how I feel about just one person and a guitar stuff. It didn't feel right to me. It felt necessary to get that album out and get some of the things out that I needed to that were more personal. But after that, it was like, okay, I want to do loud, fun
Band
music.
stuff.
Band stuff. I don't want to do this anymore. And so as I kept moving with working title and then with Rebel songs, it was like, I need to stop with this whole Nathan Gray thing. This is ridiculous. Like, it's not, number one, doing something with just your name, people can't separate that, you know. Number two, then when I was like, well, it'll be Nathan Gray and the Iron Roses, sounds like a blues band. I hated that. Like, it was like,
I think when we talked, you were called the band was Nathan Gray and the Iron Roses, I believe. Yeah,
and it's still, I mean, it gave the rest of the band a little bit more autonomy, but not a lot. It's still, you're in the shadow of my name, you know. And it just didn't seem right, especially for a band like us that was trying to start over and get out from under all kinds of shit, and to really start again with what we do as a band. It was important to just rebrand the whole thing.
Okay. Makes a lot of sense. With with working title, that's when you brought a band in. Were you part of that, Becky? Was you said you sang on all of the solo stuff?
So I actually started with Feral Hymns. So that Feral Hymns was their first solo album, was actually the first album that I started singing backups for on that. So this will be Feral Hymns working title. This will be my 4th.
Yeah. Well, you did 3 albums backing vocals and this one as a main vocalist, you know,
Okay.
because it was probably Rebel Songs when she came in and was singing, and it was like, this is silly. You just be part of the band, you know, just the same way I did with Phil. Like, he came in to rap some stuff and it was like, no, you're just here now. You just,
You're in the band
one
now.
of us.
Yeah, you're in the band
That's
now.
how everybody got here.
That's literally how everyone got here. And now doing this sort of dual vocalist duet, like punk duet type of feel, it gives something new to what we do. I can liken it only to maybe like Alkaline Trio. You've got
Dan
and Matt,
and
who
Skiba, going back and forth,
who go back and forth, and they're both sort of main vocalists within that. Sometimes one's harmonizing the other, but it's still, we very purposefully on this, instead of putting Becky's vocals in the background, putting them up front together, so it has more of that duet feel.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, with Alkaline Trio, you know, if Dan's going to sing a song, then there's Dan's song, and then they'll kind of go back and forth, more so now. But that's a really cool. So that's kind of the dynamic now moving forward with this new album.
But not to steal that style, because we don't like go back and forth. It's more just we're both singing all the time.
Right. Yeah, no. I didn't mean that way. I just meant like, when they're playing, they've done this new thing now because Dan has a bigger catalog of songs where it's probably enough that they can go back and forth a bit more than before, where Dan maybe got three songs in the set.
His songs are my favorite, but anyway,
they are mine too. I'm not gonna lie.
But we also just thought it was cool to think of like a punk duet vocal style through. It's just, I haven't heard it before. So it seemed like a cool thing as we're moving forward to do something new.
I love that. That's amazing. And with the band for the Iron Roses, was that the same people that were involved with the last album with Rebel Songs, or has it changed since even that album?
The only person that was in this band back in working title was Michael, who plays bass, was the touring bass player.
Okay.
But he wasn't fully in the band because he didn't even play on Rebel Songs. He was just the touring bass player. And this new album is the first album that Michael's actually played on and contributed to. So it's been really cool, like switching up people until we find the ones that stick, you know? Rebel Songs was completely written by me and my friend Jed and Gene. And then I just had people coming in and out to figure out who was going to stay and who wasn't.
Okay. That was my next question. I was curious if and we'll probably get to this point with I remember you saying that with working title there was a tour happening and then the pandemic hit. You had maybe just put the album out and then
literally
and maybe 4 or 5 dates in the pandemic hits, sends you back home, or
we almost didn't make it out of Canada.
Oh my, I didn't know that part of the story.
We just made it out of Canada into Portland, Maine, and that was our last show, was Portland, Maine, before we had to drive home. Because it was but we had just made it out of Canada, and it was crazy because the 2 Canadian shows, no one was there, like just no one. And so
it was like
you
knew tickets were sold, but the pandemic was so kind of people were scared enough that they weren't showing up to the show.
It was just, and ahead of us, it was like people are not coming. Like we have to shut these shows down. So Philly got canceled, Boston got canceled, a bunch of stuff did, and we just had to drive home through all that going, oh, what's it gonna be like? A few weeks? Like, we'll be fine.
Oh man. Yeah, that curve never got flattened after 2 weeks. So I do remember that. Okay. So working title, and then is that when you start working on Rebel Songs, was at kind of during that pandemic?
Because they had to do something.
I don't stop writing.
No.
Ever. So
literally.
If whenever you hear an album, there's at least 4 songs in the work for the next one. Like,
No
it's-
way.
and it's cool because Phil, who plays guitar with us now, is the same way. So it drives Becky insane. Like he'll be over here and we'll just start like, and he'll run and grab the guitar and we'll just start going like,
we haven't even gotten this one out
right.
yet. Chill just a bit. Some breathing room.
Oh wow. With Rebel Songs, I believe we were talking on about that album last time, and you're kind of saying, Nathan, that you kind of were at a point where you felt as though you could go back to talking, kind of like speaking more on those political and social issues,
Yeah.
and kind of letting the anger go in a sense, and having more fun with. I don't want to misquote you, but essentially, if you're
doing pretty good.
kind of going back to the fact that at that point you felt as if you could speak to those things and make it not as like angry.
Yeah.
And do you
Yeah.
feel like going into this new album that kind of continued, or like,
Oh, even
I
more
guess,
so.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we just have a party.
Yeah.
When we
Yeah.
play and when we record, when we do everything, it's a celebration, even more so with everybody involved, because we're having a great time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we have a belief system. We have things that we need to get out there and we need to say. But honestly, how many people are you attracting if you're just miserable?
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
I feel like that's the other side's job, to be miserable and angry and sad all the time. We're here to have a great time and to promote good values, I feel.
Mhm.
And openness and connection. And if you're going to do that, you might as well dance while you're doing it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I love that. I remember I think you were saying last, the live show itself is more of a, I think you kind of alluded to it as like you said a ministry, but you didn't mean in the way of like, coming together in a ministry,
Mhm.
but it's an event, right? It's not
yes,
just,
it's a
we're going to come
celebration.
up here and play
Yeah.
20 songs or 15 songs and then
Yeah.
Yeah.
leave.
That's not what we do.
It's definitely more of like a celebratory protest.
Yeah.
Like if you've been to like a protest in DC, like where they're walking down the street, beating on drums and chanting and
Mhm.
dancing and that's us.
Yes.
Like,
And everybody is
that's
involved
what
in
we
that.
try to bring to the live set, is this dancing celebratory protest.
I love
That's
that.
not just us speaking at the crowd or singing
Yeah.
at the crowd. It's a very like
Coming
the
together.
everybody that comes to see us is part of that.
Mhm.
So it's very important that we set a space where people can walk in that door, let go of all the bullshit that happens outside that door, know that they can show up messy, that they can show up sad, that they're, enough of who they are in that space, and we're just going to just go crazy together.
Yeah, it's a safe space instead of going in knowing, oh, okay, this band's gonna just be hammering and preaching at
Right.
me.
Right.
No, we're
Or
here to
am
celebrate.
I cool enough to be here?
Yeah.
Do I have the
Sure.
right style?
Yeah.
Do I have the right? There is no style. There is no way to be. It's just come in and let's dance and go crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, very, very cool. I love that. With this new album, Becky, being a part, now it's the songs are kind of you're more in the forefront here when it comes to the songs. Do you all kind of collaborate more with the writing process? Because it sounded like before, Nathan, it was you and a few other people that just
Mhm.
were, aside from you writing all the albums prior, just a couple of people writing the albums. Is it more of a collective when it comes to writing the newer songs in the new album?
Yeah, I mean, musically, definitely, like everybody has their own style to add in. What I think is hilarious about us is we are 6 people with completely different backgrounds, like, and completely different influences, even, which makes for interesting songs. But because we've also been very careful to create a family within the band of people who are safe to each other and share the same kind of ideologies or ideals or moral compass, it means that when we're writing those songs, we're all speaking from the same thing. So like moving away from, even maybe rebel songs a little bit, still held a lot of themes that were very Nathan centric.
Mhm.
This album is something that can be spoken to out of each of our voices. So writing it together means that we've created an album that each and every one of us has a voice in that protest, I guess is the way to say it. So yeah, that has been super fun for me personally, because I want to be convicted in what I'm singing, and we think we all do. So
well, not only that, but also like on Rebel Songs or Working Title, all the harmonies I wrote. And even if she was singing them, like I was usually like, do it like this. Whereas with this, she wrote all her own. So it might as well just be two melodies going at the same time, you know, because there's a bunch of stuff that I wouldn't have picked, but it sounds amazing. And it's like awesome that everybody has their part to play in this band now. It's so weird, the different parts and how they fit together, because it doesn't make sense. Pedro is probably one of the best rhythm guitarists I've ever heard in my life. He's very solid. It's very like Ramones-y, Clash, like very punk driven rhythm guitar. Whereas Phil is more of a metal discordant, like lead guitar player, and just incredible in what he does. And he's got this weird like mix of metal and hip hop that he does that like it brings something new to what we do. And Michael, what the fuck is Michael?
He is the most
like,
he's a bass player that I want to listen to his parts in the album, like listen for them, because I'm like, how the fuck is he doing that? It just, he just plays it like it's nothing.
You know how there's some busy bass players where you're like, Jesus, calm down.
Like Matt Freeman or something.
Right. But then there's some that you're like, wow, that really adds to what's happening. And that's Michael. Like, he's very busy, he's all over the place, but it makes sense, and it pulls what we do out of just the standard punk rock feel, you know, sort of like Hot Water Music, you know what I mean?
Oh, sure.
Those bass lines are rolling all over the damn place, but they make sense and they bring together what they do. And that's what we do as well, I think.
Amazing. With this, like coming together to write this album, Nathan, did you, going into it, how did you approach the band, or even approach Becky? Like, this is the new album. It's just going to be, you know, the Iron Roses from here on out. Like, kind of having that conversation of being inclusive for everybody. Was that something that was like a conversation between everyone, or did it just kind of happen that way?
Sort of a little bit of both. Like, there was a lot of letting go I had to do. A lot to learn. Oh, shut up. But I had to learn, you know, to let go of a lot of things and things that were stressing me out and holding the band back from doing what we did with this album. So there was a lot of stuff where I had to write a little bit and just send it out into the atmosphere and see what happens, you know, and let everybody do their part with it, instead of, oh, let's do this like this, and this should sound like this, and we should do it this way. And what everyone came back with was great, but it wasn't until we got into the studio, she was smiling because she knew what I was going to say. When we got into the studio, it was like, oh, I get what we're supposed to be doing now. Like, everyone got in and did what they were supposed to do for it without me or anyone else guiding them. They just did their thing. And everyone one by one, and it just started clicking together in these ways that I would have never seen coming. Like, there are parts on this album where it's like, what the fuck is that? It works. I don't know why. Like, so.
Do you remember a specific moment during the recording of the album that happened? You were like, whoa, what that?
There is a song that you have not heard yet, and you're not going to hear until the album comes out. It's the second song on the album, and it's actually it's called Soldier of Fortune, and it's coming out on the album, and it's also coming out on that Fest comp that Sell the Heart Records is putting out.
Oh, cool.
And it's an awesome song. I love this song. It's got this really cool, Michael does this awesome scream in it, but also there is this guitar line. So it's a pretty much like Screaming for a Change, very like straightforward melodic song. And there's this part at the end of each chorus. Phil came in and did this weird discordant, like thing, Black Flag almost sounding thing. And he played it. I was like, what the fuck was that? And then Pedro played it back and was like, oh my God, that's amazing. How does that work together? But it's those parts. And I think that's what's cool about Phil and his writing, is that there are parts through this album that you'll hear these discordant, weird, almost metal-like parts
Mhm.
that stand out as really cool, but they for some reason fit in, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
It
That's
isn't
all
what I
of
would
us.
pick.
That's
Yeah, and
exactly
that's
all of us. We
good
don't know
point.
why
Like,
we fit. but
yeah,
we
I have
do.
no clue. It's none of it is what I would do, but it's exactly what I want. You know?
Sure. It's I've had that problem as well, just kind of letting go and being like, okay, I know I have this whole idea of what I want this thing to look like or sound like. I did it in the beginning of creating this podcast, just how I wanted the artwork to look or the edits to look.
Mhm.
And my wife's like, you just got to give it away to someone else. And then
Yeah.
after a little bit long, because I was spending so much time just being so, meticulous on every little thing. And then I give it away. And finally the product was, whoa, I wouldn't have thought to do that or whatever. And it works. And I'm so happy I did. And I
Yeah.
think the product turns out better. It's one of those things where just letting go of your art or your thing to let
Mhm.
other people kind of chime in.
Yeah.
It's difficult, but obviously it sounds like you're super stoked with the result.
But we even needed to do it as a band which was actually easy, with bringing Brian McTurnan came in and helped us out with a little pre-production stuff.
Oh, he
on
did.
this
He
one.
did
Yeah.
the last record too, right?
Yeah. So he produced the last album and engineered it. On this one, he didn't do any of that stuff, but I still had him come in and I sent him what we had, the demo, and he took notes, and he came in while we were playing and went, hey, try starting with this, try doing this. And it was probably just one day, right?
It literally was one day.
And we went
thought
through
were
it,
gonna
and
do
these
more.
songs completely rearranged themselves, and it was awesome. And it honestly, like, whether he comes in and does that with the next album or not, we learned how to write songs together
Yeah.
by doing that. Like, oh, that's where you put this, and that's how this should sound, and that if this is what we're going for,
Mhm.
and that's what Brian taught us. Like, just came in and went, why are you putting that there? This is
Yeah.
the best part. Put it here.
Take a
Like,
little
like, yeah,
risk with it.
yeah, take a little
Don't
risk
do
with
what
it. Do
feels
this.
first and comfortable.
Yeah. It was great. Mhm.
So that was Brian's role in this. And did you work with a different producer, engineer, or how did this album come together?
Yeah, I mean, well, we just had Pedro do the album because he
Oh,
has a studio in Richmond.
there you go.
And
House.
and it was like, well, why are we not doing this in-house? You know?
Right.
And so we got in there and let Pedro do his thing, and he's an incredible engineer. He's really good at getting the best out. And also, like I said, you need someone like Pedro to hold down the steady rhythm in the guitar section. He's very solid and very steady. And it's very good to have someone like him that can also hear when things are getting off a little bit
Mhm.
into, and how the drums and the bass need to work together, how the drums need to go, how, and very like meticulous with that. And it was very cool to have him do that. And I don't see how we'll do it any other
No.
way
No.
That's
in
awesome.
the future.
Yeah. I love the artwork for the album.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is that a friend, or who did the
Yes.
okay.
It's a good friend named Chris Hamer. He's from Atlanta, Georgia, with a
Urban pop.
Urban Pop is what he calls his company. And he does art and comics, and he runs a comic book store. And I remember us seeing his art and going, that's it.
Yeah, we've been
That's it.
stalking his art just
Yeah.
as an artist for a while.
And he's a great guy.
Yeah.
And
We just knew.
yeah, it was like when we were thinking of this, we're like, what's the future of this band art-wise, aesthetic-wise?
Mhm.
I think that's important when you're looking at a band, is like, what's that brand look like?
Mhm.
The visuals of it, the aesthetics of it. And we saw that and was like, well, that's it.
Yeah.
And we went back and forth with a couple of things. It was like, and I remember us being a little iffy because it wasn't working immediately. But then he sent that picture of the guy with the rose head, and we both were like, that's it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's it.
Mhm.
Like, and then we based all the rest of the art off of that.
Yeah.
And it just
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
perfect.
All the merch
I-
All the
lines, it's
shirts,
kind of like a
everything. Yeah.
story. It's almost like everything coordinates together
Yeah.
thematically. So
Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
That is. I saw that cover. I was like, whoa, I need to ask them where that art came from.
He's great. Absolutely great.
I'd imagine there'll be a tour to support the album because it comes out in October, mid-October.
20th.
Yep, it comes out October 20th, and we are doing a album release show in Richmond, Virginia, on the 22nd.
No, ma'am. On the 20th.
On the 20th.
Oh,
On
exciting.
the day.
On the day of the album.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then that tour will be going down to Fest in Gainesville.
On Gainesville, okay.
Yeah, and so that whole thing will be an album release tour. So we'll do that. We'll go down to Fest. We're playing a band. Well, it's not full band.
We have 2 sets.
A non-acoustic set and an acoustic set. Our drummer is multi-talented, so he jumps to keys when we do acoustic.
Oh, wow.
So the whole band can be involved.
Yeah.
So we'll do the album front to back, non-acoustically and acoustically.
Sorry, and that's happening at the fest?
At
or
Fest,
no?
we'll have 2 days.
Yeah.
So one day
Oh.
we'll do that. The next day we'll do acoustic.
Yeah, we play Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
And then in December, we go back to Germany
Yep.
and one Switzerland date. So
Mhm.
we'll do our little album party there.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Are you doing on the rest of those dates going down to Florida? Will you play the acoustic set at all, or is that's just kind of something special for the fest?
Only in Atlanta. So we're gonna play Chris Hamer that did the art.
Mhm.
He's got a comic book shop, like I said, outside of like 20 minutes outside of out of Atlanta, and we're gonna do a little release there that's just acoustic. And he's gonna sell some of the prints and the art and stuff.
Oh, wow.
right.
When is that?
That is
The 26th. It's my birthday.
26th, her birthday.
Well, I might have to make a drive. That's not
You
very
should.
fun. I mean,
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And this whole thing, we're playing the album front to back. Like that's going to be the
Which
set.
is easy because it's a 30-minute album.
Yeah. And if you hear the album, we set it to where every song sort of runs into each other. So it just goes.
oh, okay.
Mhm.
So it's
And it was funny because when we were thinking of how are we going to do the set, it was like, well, these songs already make sense right next to each other like this. Why don't we just
Mhm.
play them like
Yeah.
okay. So moving forward, will you dabble into the other songs from the first, or at least the Rebel songs that was Nathan Gray and the Iron Roses, or will it just stay, from this moment forward, basically
Right.
what you all have created?
Well, only when we need more songs. So we have
Okay.
we have a list of
I.e.
5 songs that are from working title No Way, and then the rest are from Rebel songs.
Mhm.
Rebel songs, Radio Silence, Look Alive, and there's another one I can't remember.
Don't Wait Up.
Fired Up. I think
Um,
it's Fired Up.
Why do you
So-
like that one?
Don't Wait Up is like my favorite song on the album. I love the
right on.
album, but I
That's
like that
awesome.
one a lot.
It's funny because like when we play, we have to speed up some of those songs because
Uh-huh.
when you put them next to the new songs, they sound draggy as hell.
Okay.
So it's funny we have to pick them up when
Yeah.
we play them next to these new songs,
Star super.
which are super much faster. But so what we'll do is on this tour we'll only be playing the album because that's what time we have.
Sure.
In Europe, we'll be interspersing some of the older songs because we have a longer set list. But if we've got a 30-40 minute set list, we're just going to play the album.
Yeah.
If we've got a
makes
little bit
sense,
more
yeah.
time, we'll bring in some other stuff,
Very, very cool. And I love not only the artwork for the album itself, but the way you all came up with the vinyl with the splatters, like that purple
Yeah.
one with
They're
it's
so
like a
pretty.
green. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's so cool.
Thank
Mhm.
you.
That is awesome. Well, I appreciate. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I coughed. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. I didn't want to cut you off. Well, I appreciate you both doing this. Nathan, it was so great to see you again.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you for coming back on. I have one more question. I asked you this last time, Nathan, but I'm going to ask again, and I want to see if I can get an answer from Becky as well. If you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Stop.
Oh, shut up.
There are too many of you. Stop it.
I believe you. I think you said something similar.
I think I
last
did
time.
too. I
You're
think
like
I
the
did
market's
too.
already
The market's flooded.
Yeah, flooded.
Jesus, come on, we're trying to do something here. If if I am fully honest on what I would tell aspiring bands is I wouldn't say anything about music at all. I would say, get your shit together before you go out. Build a plan. And I don't mean a plan of your band, but a plan around how you're going to act on the road, who you're going to be on the road, and how you're going to treat people when you're on the road. This was a conversation that we've all had in this band. And I think it's very important with all the things that you're seeing coming out with dudes and bands going out on the road and hurting people and doing horrible things to people and their friends not keeping them in check on these things. Tour is it's a crazy environment, and you can get sucked up into a lot of stupid things, and you can end up doing a lot of stupid things that you shouldn't be doing. In this band, the rule is you do anything that's stupid and you're going to get left on the side of the road. And fortunately, we don't have to worry. We have good folks, but you still watch. You make sure that you check each other on how much you're drinking, what you're doing, where you're at, who you're hanging out with. Is the person you're hanging out with too drunk to be hanging out with? Things of that nature. That would be my advice for young bands is don't go out and cause more bullshit in the world than was already there.
I like that. And I think for young bands too, you might think, oh, we're on tour, we're rock stars, and just go.
No, you're not.
It's on 1980.
No.
Trash the hotel, Motley Crue. That's great advice, Dave. Thank you, Becky. You have any?
Yeah, and I feel like mine is specifically to the women or the female presenting people in that aspire to be within a band or in the music scene. My advice would be to not be the thing that's standing, like don't be the thing that's standing in your own way. Like you don't have to be a certain thing to be able to take up space on stage. I am 45. I have a 13-year-old. I have a 16-year-old. I am not rail thin. Like I don't come from like a straight punk background, but I also deserve that space on stage. So I would say that there are going to be plenty of people in life who will try to keep you from what you want, but don't be the person that's doing that to yourself.
Bringing it backward.